Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt a quiet disappointment? Not for who you are, but for what you've allowed? Not because you lack strength, but because somewhere along the road, you stopped guarding it? Maybe it happened gradually. You tolerated a comment you shouldn't have. You said yes when everything in you screamed no. You gave second chances where none were earned. And now you're wondering why the respect you once commanded has started to slip away. We're taught to be generous, to be patient, to love without limits. But we're rarely taught this: that without boundaries, love turns into obligation and respect dissolves into expectation. The truth is, no one respects a man who doesn't respect himself first. And respect isn't something you can demand. It's something you radiate, silently, consistently, through the standards you uphold and the lines you refuse to let others cross. This matters more now than ever, especially for men in the second act of life. Because when you reach a certain age, you begin to understand that peace is not found in what you accumulate, it's found in what you refuse to allow. That the greatest form of self-respect isn't how loudly you speak, but how calmly you walk away when something no longer serves your soul. So today, I want to invite you into a different kind of conversation. Not about tactics, not about manipulation, but about mastery, inner mastery. We're going to explore 5 core boundaries that, once set, change the way the world sees you. Not by force, but by presence. These are principles inspired by Stoic wisdom, not to control others, but to command yourself with such clarity and consistency that others have no choice but to adjust their behavior or exit your life. This is about becoming the man whose silence speaks louder than arguments, whose composure shakes rooms, and whose standards draw the line between being liked and being respected. Let's begin. The 5 boundaries explained with Stoic insights. Boundary 1. Never reward disrespect. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And in our case, the best response to disrespect is not retaliation, but removal. A Stoic man does not allow himself to become reactive. He simply refuses to remain where he is not honored. Disrespect doesn't always arrive with shouting or insults. Sometimes it shows up quietly, in sarcasm that cuts deeper than it should, in emotional withdrawal when you speak your truth, in eye rolls that dismiss your values. And the moment you tolerate it, even once, you begin teaching others how to treat you. The Stoic man draws the line not out of pride, but out of principle. He does not need to yell or threaten. He simply says, "This is not acceptable." And if it happens again, he walks, calmly, decisively, not to punish, but to preserve, because his dignity is not up for negotiation. Boundary 2. Guard your peace. Seneca reminded us that he who is everywhere is nowhere, and many men today live like that, spread thin, constantly reacting, always pulled by noise, rarely anchored in stillness. But peace is not found by accident. It is earned through intention, through subtraction, through saying no. When you guard your peace, you're not being selfish, you're being strategic. A man without peace is a man who can't lead, and women can sense that chaos in an instant. So guard your time, protect your space, be selective about who gets access to your attention. You are not a service provider. You are a sanctuary. Peace means no longer explaining yourself to people who misunderstand you on purpose. It means choosing solitude over gossip, purpose over popularity, and silence over senseless arguments. A peaceful man is a powerful man because he is no longer ruled by the external storm. He carries his own weather. Boundary 3. Don't overshare. In today's world, openness is often mistaken for vulnerability, but there's a difference between depth and emotional dumping. A Stoic man does not pour out every emotion in hopes of being seen. He reveals himself slowly, deliberately, and only to those who have earned it. You don't owe your full story to anyone. Your experiences, your wounds, your dreams, they are sacred. And when shared too soon, too often, they become diluted. Intrigue dies, mystery fades, and you become just another open book no one finishes reading. The goal is not to withhold out of fear, but to preserve polarity. Let her lean in. Let her wonder. Let her earn your depth. That mystery, when held with confidence, is magnetic. Because you are not trying to be understood, you are choosing to be respected. Boundary 4. Master your emotional response. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And there is no test of this truth more constant than in relationships. Every sigh, every sudden shift in tone, every subtle test is an invitation for you to remain unmoved, not indifferent, but undisturbed. Emotional mastery is not suppression. It is stillness under fire. It is the ability to respond with clarity rather than react with chaos. When a woman tests you, and she will, she's not doing it to break you. She's doing it to feel your edge, to know whether your calm is real or rehearsed. The man who breathes before he speaks, who waits before he responds, who pauses long enough to choose reason over impulse, that man becomes a safe harbor in her storm. Not because he fixes her, but because he doesn't flinch. He doesn't collapse, he stands. Boundary 5, always be willing to walk away. Perhaps the most difficult, yet most liberating truth of all. You must be willing to leave the table when respect is no longer being served. This is not bitterness, it is self-honor. And no man becomes great by clinging to something that diminishes him. Women know. They know when you're staying out of fear, out of scarcity, out of addiction to attention. But when you stay because the relationship aligns with your values, not just your needs, everything changes. She steps up or she steps out. And either way, you win. Because the man who can walk away is the man who is truly free. And in that freedom, he becomes unshakable. He no longer begs to be chosen. He chooses himself. And in doing so, he becomes the kind of man who draws respect not through force, but through presence. These 5 boundaries are not weapons. They are walls that protect the fortress of your character. Set them not to exclude others, but to ensure that only those worthy of your strength can walk beside you. There's a moment in every man's life when he realizes that the world doesn't reward words. It rewards alignment. Not charm, not performance, but integrity. And nowhere is this contrast more visible than in how a man chooses to carry himself in moments of conflict, pressure, or emotional testing. Let's take a deeper look, not at the boundaries themselves, but at the men on either side of them. There is the man who tries to be agreeable, always available, always explaining, apologizing even when he's not wrong. He believes that being loved means being accepted at all costs. But what he doesn't see is that in the process, he becomes more accessible than respected. He lowers his standards to keep others comfortable. He thinks he's being kind, but in truth, he's being forgettable. He loses the very essence that once made him magnetic, his edge. And then there's the man who holds the line. Not with anger, but with unwavering steadiness. He doesn't chase every conversation. He doesn't justify every choice. He doesn't respond to every provocation. Not because he doesn't care, but because he's centered, rooted, grounded in values that cannot be bartered. The first man waits to be chosen. The second chooses. The first man fears distance. The second respects space. The first man offers all of himself up front, believing that full transparency creates closeness. But the second man knows better. He reveals himself like a sunrise, gradual, intentional, impossible to look away from. This contrast becomes even sharper in relationships. Women may say they want emotional openness, constant availability, or deep sharing, but what they feel drawn to, what makes their breath catch and their hearts beat faster, is the man who owns himself, who doesn't need them but welcomes them, who isn't searching for completion, but invites connection without dependency. And it isn't just women who feel the shift. Men feel it too. Your coworkers, your friends, even strangers begin to treat you differently when your posture says, "I know who I am, and I don't need your permission to be him." Contrast creates clarity. When you start holding boundaries with grace, the people around you begin to show their true form. The ones who thrived off your flexibility may call you cold. The ones who used to test your patience may grow silent. Let them. Because you're not here to be everything to everyone, you're here to be deeply true to yourself. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus said, "Know, first, who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." That adornment isn't arrogance, it's discipline. It's the quiet refusal to betray your values for temporary approval. And so, the contrast is not between good and bad, or strong and weak. It is between reactive and deliberate, between scattered and centered, between being a man who is consumed by the world and one who quietly shapes it by the strength of his presence. That is the path we walk. Not for attention, not for applause, but because we were never meant to bend at every wind that blows. We were built to stand, to draw lines not in anger but in self-respect, and to let the world adjust accordingly. There comes a time in every man's life when he stops asking for respect and begins embodying it. And what we've talked about today, these 5 boundaries, aren't simply tools for dealing with women or relationships or even conflict. They are the foundation for becoming a man who lives on his own terms, a man who doesn't waver at the first sign of pressure, a man who speaks less but means more, a man who moves slower but more deliberately, a man whose peace isn't for sale. When you draw boundaries, you're not pushing people away, you're calling yourself home. You're deciding, perhaps for the first time in a long time, that your time is sacred, your energy is finite, and your values are not negotiable. And when you live this way, not loudly, not aggressively, but with silent certainty, the world starts to take notice. People listen closer. Women soften. Friends either rise to your level or drift away. But most importantly, you feel yourself returning to who you were always meant to be. So here's what I want you to take with you today. Every time you say no to what drains you, you say yes to what defines you. Every moment you choose clarity over comfort, you sharpen the edge of your character. And every time you protect your dignity, even when no one's watching, you grow stronger in ways no applause can ever measure. Don't wait for the world to grant you permission to become the man you admire. Choose him now. And if something in this message stirred something in you, a quiet truth you've been needing to hear, then don't let it fade. Anchor it. Live it. Let today be the day you stop tolerating what makes you small and start building a life that reflects your highest standard. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. What boundary hit home the most for you? What shift are you ready to make today? And if you haven't yet subscribed to Ultimate Stoicism, this is more than a channel. It's a movement for men who are ready to trade comfort for character, noise for clarity, and approval for purpose. The next version of you is waiting. Step into him, one boundary at a time.